Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse and Measure. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button down here somewhere. Somewhere. I don't know. All right. So I want to talk about issues of discipline. I've been, struggling with this my whole life. I'm amazed I've gotten anything done because I'm really horrible at discipline. I want to do too much. I get distracted. I get bored easily. And so it's really hard for me to have a daily practice and to build on what I've done before. I'm able to do it somehow by hook or by crook. But it's something that I really had to struggle with, especially in my year off when I was making this album called Fool's Leap of Faith. And probably it's called Fool's Leap of Faith because I'm the fool. And I had to struggle with all my hang-ups and all my problems. And even as I'm nearing 50 years old, I still have these issues. And it seems like the older you get, the harder it is to break these habits. You get wiser and you get greater perspective, and obviously your skills are hopefully at their peak and not waning yet. I'm sure that's coming soon. But of course, energies are waning. But the main thing is like the habitual patterns that you want to overcome are just so ingrained. And so if your habitual pattern is discipline, well, more power to you. You've built that over your life and you're a person of great discipline. But if you don't have good discipline and you have all these habits that take you away from being disciplined, then it's harder and harder as you get older. And at some point you might just say, well, screw it. This is who I am and I'm just not going to ever get anything done. I just have to make peace with that, and so be it. It reminded me of this 4,000 Weeks book. I don't know if you're familiar with this book. I'll put a link down below. It's a really great book. It's called Time Management for Mortals. And it's really acknowledging this fact that we only have 4,000 weeks. We have, it seems like we have a long life, but human life is really damn short. When you also think you take away, your childhood and all those years you have to be in school. All those years you have to do this horrible thing called work, which takes you away from doing the things you really want to. Unless you're one of those very, very fortunate people who's found a career that's exactly what they want to be doing in their life. Most of us, we are doing a job that we don't necessarily feel passionate about just because we have to pay the bills. Especially if you're a creative person, you're making music or art, such a tiny sliver of human beings who do these things actually get to do it for a living, let alone, be a star. And look at, I'm sure you're fed constantly on YouTube. All these people are going to tell you how you can do it, how you can, make a fortune off having a YouTube channel, or if you just use the right tools, you're going to get a zillion Spotify plays and all of a sudden you're going to explode. Well, it seems like the only people making money in the music industry besides the big superstars are the people who are selling these services to us suckers who really, really want this, who really want an audience for our music, but don't have the means to do it, haven't figured it out, haven't figured out how to beat the algorithms. Anyways, this is a digression. But we just have a limited amount of time. And so this is something that I really struggle with. And when I took this sabbatical this year, I had this album that I was trying to complete. I got this great opportunity at Octave Records to record an album for free. And I didn't want to screw that up. And yet I was confronted with my real issues of discipline. And so it reminded me of this part of this book where he talks about Warren Buffett. Not that I'm a huge Warren Buffett fan, but I thought this insight was really interesting. Buffett's advice is different. He tells the man to make a list of the top 25 things he wants out of life and then to arrange them in order, from the most important to the least. The top 5, Buffett says, should be those around which he organizes his time. But contrary to what the pilot might have been expecting to hear, the remaining 20, Buffett already allegedly explains, aren't the second-tier priorities to which he should turn when he gets the chance. Far from it. In fact, these are the ones he should entirely avoid at all costs, because they're the ambitions insufficiently important to him to form the core of his life, yet, and this is the important part, seductive enough to distract him from the other ones that matter most. So if he didn't quite get what he was aiming at there, This is an apocryphal story. Who knows if Warren Buffett even said this? But basically, you make a list of the top things you want to do with your life. What is it? Absolutely something when you on your deathbed at the end of your life, you're going to look back and say, I'm proud that I did that. What are my priorities for life? And so this guy comes up with 20 or 25. And then, so Warren Buffett says, take the top 5. These are what you're going to focus all your time on. And then the other 20 are not like, okay, well, once I'm done, in my spare time, let's say I want to learn Italian, I want to write a novel, I want to write a book of poetry. These are my second tier, but they're not that important. I want to be a jazz pianist or a classical pianist. All these things we may want to learn. I want to learn how to throw pottery. So what this story is saying is that instead of like, oh yeah, you're going to do those, in your spare time or as hobbies, on the side, he's saying that you should actively avoid those because they are not your top priorities, but they are seductive enough to draw you away, to entice you away from what is really, really important, which is what you should be spending all your time on. And so I found this story really insightful because this is a problem I have. I have this FOMO, fear of missing out. It's not really fear, right? It's actually just this, I'm interested in so many different things. The world is just such a fascinating place. History is fascinating, art's fascinating. All these different things about the world, all these spiritual traditions, all these different types of music, languages, all this stuff is just fascinating to me, and I want to do it all. But as I saw with my sabbatical year, it's just like, well, if I try to do all this stuff, it's going to take me away from the things that are the real priorities. And once I had this record deal to write a whole original album, which is what I want to do, I could have just recorded stuff that I'd already recorded before and just do new versions of them in the studio with this high quality recording system and the approach of recording live. I could have taken that approach. But no, I really wanted to write an original album, and I wanted it to be really good and to be really well arranged. I wanted to write string parts for everything, and really use all these different instruments, not only to show off what I could do with my music and to make these songs really have the potential to have a life of their own and not just be, good songs maybe in their nascent state, but then the recording is bad and the arrangements are just kind of lazy. I wanted them to have a real opportunity in the world, just like your children. You want them to have the best of all possibilities to manifest and do the best they can in the world. So I was dedicated to that, and I did not want to get distracted. Of course, I did. I had signed up to run the New York City Marathon. That was a huge time suck. All that training I had to do. I'm really glad I did it. But that was just one example. I scheduled a trip to go to Madrid, and I had the idea that I just didn't go to Madrid just to see the sights and have fun. I was like, I want to follow the path of Don Quixote. So I reread all of Don Quixote again, and then I took this online course. That's other examples of things that I did. So getting distracted is a really thing. So struggling with discipline is something that I've really had to focus with. And I've used the habit stacking skill set from Atomic Habits a lot. But those are mainly the ones that I had built up were ones that I had around my work life, around the structure of going to work every day, which actually is really good for someone who lacks discipline because the structure of that day forces you to do things. And it's much easier to just kind of get in these habits of doing these things. On my commute every morning, I meditate on the way to work. I practice Japanese as I'm walking to the subway. I get on the train. Hopefully I can get a seat, and then I do some meditation. And then on my way home, I write about what happened that day, and then I read for the rest of the time. So these things that are built in help with that. But when I had this just unfettered time, where I had just days and days and days where there was no structure at all, I really had kind of a crisis about facing my own lack of discipline and getting over it. And really what I had to do was just like from the moment that I got up with the first cup of coffee, I had my writing journal there, and I had it open from the night before, so that the first thing that caught my attention, my little zombie brain, was this songwriting. And I looked over what I'd done before, the night before, and all of a sudden I got new ideas. My guitar was right there, and I picked it up, and I would get that songwriting done. And then I had to tell myself and reward myself all those other little enticing little things that were taking me away, as like, you're going to reward yourself at the end of this session by doing those things. So instead of just like avoiding them like the plague, like Warren Buffett suggested in this book, I use them as a way to reward myself. So after doing 2 hours of songwriting, and then doing a couple hours of recording and arranging, I would reward myself in the evening by watching just a movie that was on my list of something that I wanted to see, or practicing piano or something like that. Not that that seems like that great of a gift. So overcoming these distractions and this lack of discipline maybe is something that you're facing. I'd be curious to know what discipline problems you have. If this is a problem, if you are very disciplined, what do you recommend to people like me? And then if you also have this problem, what has helped you to overcome it? Because this was something that I really had to deal with. And the title of the album is Fool's Leap of Faith, and the fool is really me. I'm the fool that, there's this quote from William Blake: if a fool persists in his folly, he will become wise. So with that as my kind of mantra, I've given in to the fool so many times and just let him exhaust all this discursive rambling and lack of discipline and jumping from thing to thing, just to like exhaust it, so that this fool all of a sudden gets sick of that and just wants and craves that discipline. So that's what I did for the first couple months of my sabbatical, was just kind of wear out the fool and just go on whatever whim I wanted to. But I think the insight from that is that you should have that as part of your life. If you're suffering from this same lack of discipline, inside the structure of your week, you should have one day where you just go out and do whatever the hell you want, or watch whatever you want, whatever mindless, numb, dumb thing that you do that maybe you're embarrassed to even talk about. Give yourself time to do that, and know that that's going to happen, so that when that zombie brain comes on and wants to do that stuff and get distracted, you can be a parental figure for yourself and say, well, yeah, you can do that, but you got to get this done first. And that's what I had to do. In order to get 8 songs finished in a short amount of time and get them all arranged and recorded, I had to focus in that way and built in that discipline. So anyways, please share your comments and let me know how you deal with this issue. Maybe I'm the only one who suffers from these problems. I hope so, because it sucks sometimes. But if I overcome it, you can too. All right. Best of luck with your songwriting and your spiritual practice. I will see you next time.